Welcome to Talk to Me Nice, Communication Gone Wild, where we tackle all the ways words can build bridges or burn them down.
We're your hosts, here to dive into the quirks, challenges, and straight up chaos of modern communication in this digital first world.
From hilarious text fails to awkward Zoom moments, we'll explore how we connect, misconnect, and everything in between.
With expert insights, real life stories, and a little bit of humor, we're here to help you navigate the messy, fascinating world of communication.
Because let's be honest, talking to each other shouldn't be this hard, but it is. Welcome to Talk to Me Nice, Communication Gone Wild, episode 2. I am one of your co-hosts, Ashley.
And I'm one of your co-hostess, Tamika.
And I'm another co-host. My name is Tim.
Last but not least, your fourth co-host, Keyshawn.
And this episode is called Sorry Not Sorry, the art of apologizing and why accountability matters. Tamika, kick us off with some history.
In ancient times, many cultures, apologies were tied to the honor and shame. In Japan, the samurai would commit the seppuku, and it's atoned for dishonor, while in medieval Europe, public apologies were often required for offenses. Religious influence on apologies, including Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism, emphasizes on confession, repentance, and forgiveness as core principles. As media expanded, celebrities, politicians, and companies began making public apologies to maintain reputation. Phrases like, "I'm sorry if you were offended," became popular, often seen as insincere ways to avoid true accountability. The internet and social media have intensified public scrutiny, leading to more demands for genuine accountability from individuals and corporations. So, some key points is what would make an apology sincere anyway?
Depending on how sincere the person is, where it's coming from, their intentions, that might be like some key factors that can probably play a part into it. I mean, if somebody is forced to apologize, then it's not really a true apology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it based on the acceptance of the apology? Like does it count if I don't accept it, or if I feel like the person who you're apologizing to is the one who dictates sometimes.
I don't know. I think even if a person, whether or not a person accepts it or not, depending on how sincere the apology is, I think it still counts, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let me throw something out there if y'all don't mind. And I got to get a little personal about myself, just to kind of relate to this. So I'm in recovery. I've been clean. I used to do a lot of bad stuff back in the day. I've been clean for 12 years and a couple months now. And I say that.
I love that, Tim.
Yeah, I say that because I say that because part of the process is, eventually making amends. And it doesn't, and like that amends process isn't like you just go to everybody and tell them you're sorry or whatever. Because again, if you're an addict and you've been screwing people over for years, going, 2 days after you got clean and telling them you're sorry means absolutely nothing. We learn how to make amends and not only take responsibility for it, which I think is part of, part of apologizing and part of making those amends is taking responsibility for it, but also letting them know hey, I'm not just apologizing for what happened. I'm also letting you know that, I'm working to make sure things like this don't happen again, so it's not just a blind apology. There's more, there's more than that behind it. But going back to someone else's acceptance of it, and maybe this is the selfish side of recovery, because sometimes recovery can be about almost as selfish as my using was. But I've been told, for me making amends, apologizing, whatever you want to call it, is me clearing my side of the street. I have zero control. I am absolutely powerless over how somebody else takes it. Now they can accept it, and if they do, it's great. And if they don't, there's not really much I can do about that. And all I can really do is just make sure that I'm clearing my side of the street. But again, going back to what somebody else was saying about sincerity, it does need to be sincere. Just going up and just saying when you're when you get in a fight in daycare or whatever, and the daycare ladies hey, apologize to Billy over here for what you did. It's like, there's nothing sincere about that. You're just doing it because you had to,
because you chose
not
to.
because you wanted to, or there was any emotion behind it. Yeah. So,
I believe in something that says, it says the biggest way to, it says the best apology is change behavior. So I think
exactly. There you go.
that
Yeah,
a lot of times,
absolutely.
we apologize, we say sorry, we say I didn't mean what I did, or I'm sorry for how it made you feel, or what I done to you. But it's just like, I think when Tamika mentioned these corporations and how they do things, right? Or you go back to, the history of, religion and things like that, right? It's all of it is in the hopes of change behavior, right? We
Yeah,
apologize and we're making it publicly, and we're saying these things to denounce what we once did and pick up something new.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think for me, it's the way it's the best sorry you can do is change behavior, for sure.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
the actions behind it. Like once you say you're sorry, it doesn't stop there. It's like you have to kind of basically show that you're sorry. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So like, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Because
and
if
it
I
says,
say sorry for like stealing money from you, and then I turn around tomorrow and steal more
Steal
money
it
from you,
again.
yeah, kind of takes away
Like,
from the
bro,
apology, like,
look, that
and
was
I've been that
mine.
guy. I've been on both sides of that,
yeah.
you know.
And it
So
says, why accountability matters. Like, when you take ownership of it, you're also
yeah,
realizing your part in the situation, right? You're realizing,
yeah,
like, hey, I know what I did wrong. And I think Tim said something. He said, it clears out my side of the street, right? So
mm,
when you go out there and you say, like, hey, I'm taking accountability for what I've done, it shows the other, whoever you're talking to, or the other person, that, okay, I'm saying this publicly, because I want to shine light on what I've done and take accountability to say it that is wrong.
yeah,
But I think, it goes back to what I just said, accountability, because it says, one of our questions today was like, why accountability matters. And it's just like, once you take accountability, your change actions is what I think is the focal point, right? Because we can say, well, I'm trying to think of something recently, or something that happened in the past, like with a company, and how they went from doing some things that were not the best in public's eye, or interest, and how they uh took accountability and changed those things. And anybody can think of like a time where a company did that and they took accountability, and then they may have like changed the way that they did things.
because sometimes
Yeah,
I feel like, almost like on the opposite side, like companies do things and they try to act like, they're empathetic with you or what they're going through, but like their actions say something completely different. I don't know if,
I mean,
I
because
don't
Oh,
know.
they continue to do it. Yeah, they continue to
Yeah,
do it.
I feel like that
Well,
yeah,
happens
there
a
is
lot
the
though. Well, like if your internet goes out, you're gonna most likely get an email or some type of text message that says, "Hey, we apologize for your internet service going out." But to be honest, that happens like almost once a month for some people. You know what I'm saying? Like depending on who you got. So
They're
like,
lying to us.
yeah.
yeah. So it's
They're
like
like, we
They're
that.
not
apologize for it going
sorry.
out, but we apologize for it going out, but it'll be back up anywhere in the next 5 minutes to 5 hours. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
So is
Like,
it really an apology if it's gonna happen again? You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like, so that's like an
That's a
instance right
good one.
yeah.
That's a good one. We keep accepting it. We keep accepting
Exactly.
apology.
keep keeping the same internet too. We don't change
Yes,
providers or
Yeah.
yes.
services,
We're
but
loyal. We're loyal.
Well, like I
We're
know with my
loyal.
company, and I work for a large hospital company, and I know one thing, and anytime you have surveys with all that, pay and all that is a pretty big issue. In my company, it's big. We don't have like mass firings, and they have good benefits. So there are things out there that compensate for the fact that maybe they don't pay quite as much as like the competition, but that comes up a lot on these surveys. And it like this thing they did about a year or two ago. So we used to get these quarterly bonuses, And you know, and at one point when they kept hearing things about pay, what they decided to do was like, oh, we're sorry and we understand, you know, pay is a big thing, especially with prices and all that going up. So what we're going to do, instead of giving quarterly bonuses, we're going to take the average of those 4 bonuses and then divide that and give you a pay increase, like an hourly increase that would equal out what the bonus, you know, would be. Now, on one hand, it's like, all right, cool, I make a little more money per hour, and instead of being, you know, now that extra money will be taxed at normal tax rates as opposed to a bonus rate. But when you really look at it, I'm like, all our company did was like put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, because they basically just took whatever they were going to pay us anyway and added it to our regular pay. So it's like they made it appear like we're empathetic and we understand and here's more money, when in reality they did absolutely nothing. They spent no extra money for this particular resolution. So I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like a sorry, not like sorry, but not really, you know, like
it's a scam.
Oh my God,
it's a scam. Like, it sounds good though. Like,
that's what it is. It sounds good.
And it goes
good.
So would that be like a marketing thing, like for their employees? Like they market that to you guys, like as if it was. Oh my goodness, that was a good marketing stunt. Like they marketed to like for that strategy was like crazy when you think about it. Because even when you said it, I'm like, oh, okay. But when you really look at it, like step back and actually look at what they offer you, they still gave you the same thing, but put it in a different box.
Yeah, and it cost them nothing.
Nothing extra. Yeah,
they didn't spend any extra money. So I've got some stuff here, like just some notes I took. You know, so, and I hope I'm not stepping on Keyshawn's toes here, but like I found this blog or whatever that was talking about like reasons you don't apologize and reasons you do, you know, and like some of the things they were saying was like, like don't apologize for being yourself, you know, don't apologize for someone else's mistake, and don't apologize for some things that are out of your control. And, you know, there's exceptions to everything. And then when you do is when, you know, if like your actions go against, you know, maybe your core values, if you've caused harm, which we discussed earlier, you know, when you've made a mistake or when you fail to listen or communicate or whatever, you know, so I thought those were pretty interesting. Now there's some like going back to like recovery, there was a situation recently at like our area. I don't know how to really explain it, but it's like the overall area. So like all the different meetings that are in Jacksonville all kind of report back to this one, like the overall area thing. And you know, and this like this area holds a convention every year or year and a half or something like that. And there was a situation towards the end of last year where a person that was on the convention committee basically got booted out of their service commitment for whatever reason. I won't go into all that, but they didn't feel that the situation was handled correctly. So they filed a grievance with the area, and it went on and on and on and on. It went on for like a year. It was ridiculous. But when it finally ended, you know, like this poor guy sitting here, he's been accused. This accuser got 2 or 3 different instances to air her grievance, and then a vote was held before this guy had a chance to defend himself. Now, I, being like the representative for my particular meeting, I voted to abstain. I abstained because I'm like, that's not right. We can't vote on something when somebody hasn't had a chance to defend themselves. But somebody made an interesting point to me later, you know, when it says like, don't apologize for someone else's mistakes, or don't apologize if you don't feel you did something wrong. But somebody brought it up later, and it's like, hey, you know, for the sake of just moving on, had this gentleman maybe just said, hey, I'm sorry things didn't, you know, like, I'm sorry things, you know, didn't, sorry for the way they worked out, you know, and I'm sorry this hurt you, and that maybe it didn't, you know, maybe it wasn't done, you know, the way it should have been, or, you know, just maybe taking some level of responsibility, even if he doesn't necessarily feel like he did anything wrong, or that what they did in the grand scheme of things wasn't wrong, could have maybe just apologized and they could have moved on and everything else. And then like he got voted out of his position and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, you know, like on one hand, I didn't want to vote because he didn't get a chance to defend himself. But on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, there are certain instances where it's like, okay, we're just going to go back and forth and bicker and bicker and bicker about who was right, who was wrong, whatever, where at some point somebody just needs to be the bigger person and just say, hey, this has gotten out of hand. I'm sorry. There's been miscommunication maybe on both sides. I take responsibility and let's just move on. You know, so I definitely think there's exceptions to that, you know, in some instances. You And then, I mean, like for me, like from a personal experience standpoint, like I learned a long time ago that sometimes, like when you send emails, again, going back to, like non face-to-face communication, like we talked in the first episode, like when I send emails, I learned well, not very fast, but over time, I learned just how much just saying good morning and sincerely my name at the end, instead of just throwing a message out there and sending it out to the world, just how much, pressure or tension or whatever can be removed just by greeting and saluting somebody, instead of just saying, hey, like barking an order at somebody or just barking something out and sending it, with no other context, because I used to have this issue. And again, this goes back to like pre-recovery, Tim, when I had zero filter, and like somebody would send me an email that was just one giant run-on sentence. And I'm like, I'm not a grammar, I hate to use the term Nazi, but I'm not a grammar Nazi or anything like that. But like throw a comma in there every once in a while to like break up the thought a little bit. And like this particular person didn't. And I just took it upon myself, no filter Tim, to send an email back saying, hey, commas are your friends. And I don't know, about 30 minutes later, I was sitting in human resources trying to explain myself and not lose my job. So it's like, like, I don't know how that, is like maybe like a sorry, not sorry thing. Like, like, yeah, that was wrong. And I'm sorry for the way I presented it. I'm not necessarily sorry for the message I was trying to convey, but there's better ways to convey that, like maybe could have taken a person aside or, or even maybe gone to like a supervisor and just say, hey, when they're emailing, can they just make sure they use a period or something to break up this thought, because it makes it a lot harder to read and interpret. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a million other ways than just being a jerk off and sending some snarky comment back to them, or whatever, so like, there's situations like that. And, even from a leadership standpoint, I never want to, when I was a leader, and this was post-recovery Tim, this was filter Tim, when I finally got into leadership, to where, like I sometimes have to go to my employees with things, if they're not meeting production or if the quality is not good or, whatever, things aren't getting done. It's like, I never want to go into it and hurt anybody's feelings or make them feel bad. Like, you always want to go into it with some kind of positive, feedback or whatever, even if you're having to be stern, but sometimes you do have to be stern. So it's like in my head, I'm like, well, I'm sorry for the way I'm having to come at you, but I'm not sorry for the message I'm trying to convey, because in the end, the job has to be done, like whatever it is, the job needs to be done. And if I've come at, if we've discussed it multiple times, then at some point I have to be stern, which may go against my core value of like, I don't want to be a jerk to you. I don't want to be mean to you. I want everything to be friendly. I want you to feel comfortable around me. But at the same time, I'm like, I got people, riding my tail from above, so like this needs to get done, kind of situation. And then of course there's always the, I don't know how this relates, but I wrote it down and it was like, kind of like like the act now, ask permission later kind of thing. Like, if you're in a situation, whether you run your own business or you're in leadership or whatever, and sometimes it's like there's nobody around here to ask about doing this, but this needs to get done. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to act now and I'll ask permission later or I'll apologize later or whatever it is, so like for me, those are some of my like personal things with this, like where, I don't necessarily like the way I might have to act or even that I acted, or whatever. But at the same time, I may not be sorry for the message I was trying to convey, but I'm like sorry for the way I conveyed it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't understand. I do understand that. Like it's like a twofold thing. But but I also can see like how someone can be like, oh well, you're not really sorry, And I think that that's like are we still taking accountability if we're, if we're not sorry about doing it? So I think like the accountability part is just like, hey, I understand I felt this way, but I actually have to re-examine myself to understand that it's not okay to talk to a person this way, or it's not okay to act in this manner because of how it affects that person. So, and you never know that what the other person is going through or their upbringing, or if they struggled in school or anything like that. So sometimes we have to like take ourselves out of the picture when apologizing and actually put ourselves in their shoes and understand who they are and where they came from and where they're coming from. Because then you could say like, oh, like it wasn't my my intentions to make you feel this way, or it wasn't my intentions to belittle you by that comment. And I understand the frustration on your side, as well as understanding like, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. There's a sense of like, professionalism when we email, of course, right? And it could have been easily something that you went to your boss, and we got to look at it a different way, right? It could have been like, yeah, I really apologize for this, and I can see how this make you feel. But it also can change to the fact beforehand. You could have easily went to your boss and said, hey, I see that miscommunication happens a lot within our team. How about we set a quick 30-minute meeting about netiquette on professional emailing or something like that? So it could be just like a hands-on training with the team, that not pinpointing one person or anybody in particular, but also helping someone that probably just didn't know, that say, hey, before you start an email, you say good morning. Hey, good morning, Tim.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, Ashley, versus Tim, I see that you haven't responded back to this email yet. You know what I'm saying? That can come off abrupt. Definitely at 8 a.m. I just woke up and you're being very aggressive. And that can easily turn it around where you're like attacking, be like, I'll get to it when I see in a minute. You know what I'm saying? The way you come off, where it's just like, you could be honestly like, I'm working on it, but
Makes
the way that they
want to come into work.
makes them, So So it, we have to, when we do apologize and take an accountability, we have to definitely take ourselves out of it a little bit, because sometimes we have to look. I know it's like a selfless thing, right? I feel accountability is a selfless thing, right? We're taking ourselves out of it and putting the other person's shoes on and saying like, okay, how would I feel if someone called me out like that? You know what I'm saying? And what could I do in the future to mitigate HR calling me, right? So mitigate this risk. Maybe I, like I said, set up something to where I'm helping people. I'm changing it to where I'm like a helpmate in the situation versus the person that's pointing the finger. Because if you point the finger, they're just going to continue to do the stuff that they know that you don't like. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm gonna irritate you because I know it irritates you.
And Tamika, I didn't forget. I think you had something that you was about to say.
What I was thinking at that time was the Aunt Jemima, how that didn't really apologize. And it only got whiffed of any type of attention because she had passed and no one had put a headstone on her grave.
Wow.
But even now, I think what happened is they took the name of the whole company off from Aunt Jemima to, I don't even know what it's called now, but
like
they still
Pearl.
get
It's like
name.
Pearl Milling or something like that.
Pearl Milling,
But the funny thing is, still her recipe.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Oh, like
Yeah, that was.
like a company that hasn't yet apologized. Like they never took accountability. That's a good one. They never took accountability. And you know what's crazy? I'm gonna say this before I know Tim, you about to say something. You know what? They say that it's a group of people that feel like you just if you don't address it, it'll get swept on the rug. People will forget about it, right? But if you address it, right, then it puts the eyes on you, like, okay, what they about to say. But maybe they took the route of just not taking accountability and being quiet. Because you gotta think about it. Them being quiet, it gets swept on the rug. It's like people forget about it because you're not putting nothing in the front. You're not taking accountability. You're not agreeing that you did something wrong, but you're not negating, or you're not saying that they kind of like roll the middle ground of silence. That's scary too.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, when it comes to like taking accountability, that kind of relates to Black History Month. Like the reason why people ask for I think it's restitution.
Preparation.
That's what it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's because like they don't want our history to be forgotten. That's like a way for that's like our way of receiving an apology. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like Like it's
Yeah,
almost
for
like
every
an omission. Yeah, like like
yeah,
they're
for
admitting, like we're admitting that now because we pay restitution. It's an admission to that we did
exactly,
something wrong. I can see how
exactly.
you.
That's
I
and
never
that's
looked at it like that.
I mean, that's kind of how I see it. That's kind of how I see it because it's like it's one thing to say, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're sorry, but like how? Like you said again, like we were just talking about, like okay, you can say it, but how are you going to show that you're sorry? You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like would be like a reason why so many people feel like that's necessary. It's like that would be a way for y'all to show that y'all actually empathetic about y'all apology. So that's
That's a
how I
good
look
way to
at
put it. I never seen it that way. So thank you for that. I never like even me, I just never I honestly never looked at it that way. But that's like an interesting like viewpoint that I just, haven't ever, thought about. But yeah, so it's almost like you feel like the United States is kind of like not admitting to their wrongdoing and actually, showing change. But what if someone said like, not I understand it is Black History Month, but what if someone said, well, I'm trying to think of some things that we giving you Black History Month to bring up your history. We've given you
what more do you want?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, well, I don't honestly, I don't know. Like that would be
They're
I
like
mean,
you haven't been slaves for what it's almost like I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? I'm playing devil's
yeah.
advocate, right? It's like you cheated, you cheated, how many years ago slavery was? You cheated, 90, 80 years ago,
Yeah.
and and you stayed. And it's
Well,
like, why are you still bringing it up today if I cheated
well,
this many years ago?
I think the reason why is because, well, I just like again like some more research that I did, regarding the fact that they're talking about taking like slavery out of
History
teaching,
books.
like, yeah, out of history
Yeah.
books. So it's like, again, like I said, so how can you apologize for something that's happened and then try and like kind of brush it
Cover it
under?
up.
Yeah, it's like again, like I said, it's like you're apologizing and then you're taking it back. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of us having
Ah.
Black History Month if you're gonna take it out of the history books? You know what I mean? People are gonna start wondering why are we having a Black History Month to begin with if people don't even know the history behind it. You know what I mean? So like
That's good.
again, it's just like it keeps contradicting itself, just like how Tim said, like with the marketing thing. It's like you're telling it sounds good, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, Black History Month, but then you go and take it out of the history books. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. You're not. Are you really sorry for it, or is it like
yeah, like, are
It's
you really
basically like
sorry
a
for
trick.
it?
Like it's like yeah, we're giving you something, but we also not really
Taking it
giving you
back.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, exactly. So
Yeah, and I mean, we're totally like moving backwards on that. And I'm saying this from the perspective of like a white man who is like part of a group that is responsible for like every bit of oppression you see out in the world today, whether it's against women or against minorities or whatever. It's like it's all white men, and I'm just sitting here like, like sad on that front, but at the same time, like watching, what's currently going on, and not to make things too political, but I mean, it's hard to avoid it. Like watching, us or, as a people or whatever, just move backwards. Like now we're trying
Yeah.
to whitewash history. Like let's like Keyshawn said, let's take slavery out of the, out of the history books. Let's take history out of the history books. So what? So in 20 years from now, we can pretend like white people and white men in particular have been like nice to society. It's like, no, we've been, we things have come so far from like that to where we are now, but it's like you still need to remember that because it's going to happen again if you don't, like
there we go.
like what we're seeing now, like we're seeing the beginnings, at least in my opinion, we're seeing the beginnings of what could be like a dictatorship and like, white men trying to put themselves in, supreme power again, and it's just sad.
Yeah.
It's like, no, those things, that's history. That happened. You can't just like pretend it didn't happen, because guess what? There's always, you can take it out of the books all you want. There's always going to be people around who know what happened, who pay attention to history, who have the books, or whatever. And it's like, and you need to learn from history, no matter what it was, no matter whether it's the Roman Empire or slavery or, anything going on. It's like, you have to learn from that. You have to be aware of it so you can learn from it, because otherwise it's just going to happen again.
I think that actually sums up why accountability matters. You literally just said it. Listen, if we don't take accountability for what we've done and actually show in the history that we've done this, we will repeat ourselves. We will repeat the same thing. If we don't learn, accountability is us saying like, "Oh, I see where I went wrong." You're admitting to what you went wrong, and you're putting it out there. Back to Tamika said, in the history that how it transformed to, even companies making public, apologies, because you need to put it out in the public. Hey, I made this wrong, and I'm letting you guys know that I did this wrong, and this is what I'm changing. You're making it public because so you can know where you came from and where you don't want to go back to. So I think that that's a great point that you made about like, hey, if you take it out of history, then the kids that's growing up, they would never understand why we don't do that, why we don't do these things, why we don't say these things, because the best teacher is from our history, right? So that's really good.
Recently when Kanye West brought his wife out, she came out naked, and no one is talking about. Well, people are talking about it, but they're not apologizing. And I feel like, did she break some type of law? Like, there's a law against indecency, and there's indecency in the dictionary, and then there's Kanye's wife face. I don't even know her name, but they're not going to apologize.
Something. Yeah, I don't even remember what her name is.
They're not apologizing. And I don't think anybody is holding them accountable, which brings me to the cancel culture. Like, those people we just write off. Do they even get the chance to apologize?
Well, yeah, sometimes, depending on, I feel like depending on how much of an uproar the audience and sometimes even social media has, depends on whether or not they apologize, because sometimes celebrities are held accountable for their actions and sometimes they're not. Like, it kind of just depends on it kind of depends on whether or not they want to be held accountable. Some celebrities just let things just play out the way it's been presented, and then some will go and double back down and apologize. So I guess it just depends on who it is that made the mistake, honestly, if you're looking for an apology.
Yeah, and I think with Kanye, I don't know, with him, it's like he's either a mad genius, and just like knows exactly what he's doing and it's all calculated. I don't mean musically, but I just mean with like, the other stuff, like the red carpet thing. He's either a mad genius or there's something mentally not quite right there to where he doesn't take accountability for anything, or like all these different things he said or done or whatever. And it's like, yeah.
It
might be.
And when you say the mad genius part, you got to think about it. He put out there that his wife was the most
Google search
thing, most Google search after the Grammys, or who won the whatever Grammy. She was the most Google search person on that day, and it's funny because it shows us like, where he stands on accountability, right? Nobody's having an uproar because, I saw this comment, right? When that came out that he put out there, my wife was the most searched person. I saw a comment and I chuckled, and they said, because we was looking for the unedited photos. So it shows you that like we're just in a different time and place. Because everything, like, yes, we could be in the uproar about, hey, she was indecency exposed at this event, right? And we know some people brought their kids to the Grammys, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, right, these people who took the pictures, they didn't put it out there uncensored. It was censored. So technically, if you weren't actually there, if you weren't there, which are like physically there, you didn't see them exposed, right? It was only
No, there's some pictures out there of her whole outfit. Those people that did censor her, they had to, because they're not taking pictures off of themselves. They're taking pictures for a company that would be held accountable for exposing that. They can get sued. They'll be liable. I feel like I should sue because I'm traumatized.
You could. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's some type of law that allow you to go ahead.
No,
and
you probably could.
Well,
I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah. The FCC really only covers like television, and like radio and all that. It hasn't really fully caught up to the internet. Now, a lot of internet companies like Facebook and Instagram say, hey, we want to keep this family friendly, or as much as we can, so like you can't post nudity and stuff like that on here. But really, the internet is still the wild, wild west as far as that's concerned. And I can tell you something right now that is almost like, to me, this is like the definition of me being sorry, not sorry. Is I understand everything, you're saying about, how like that was indecent and inappropriate and all that, if there were kids around or kids clicking around on the internet to see that. But at the same time, I'm probably not that sorry, because I did watch her take her jacket off on loop probably 5 times. I'm like, I mean, it's like, I'm a man and all. But yeah, I mean, I could totally see both sides. It's like, oh, I'm sorry if your kids saw that, but I'm not sorry because I watched it 5 times. So
you're only human, so it's okay.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's just,
it said she was the most searched. It said she was the most searched person on that day. So
exactly.
Everybody, obviously, people wanted to see it, and they can't. You got to think about it. They probably saying like, "Well, if you saw it, how did you see it? Did you search it? Did you?"
I didn't have to see it.
It showed up. It showed up on my Facebook. Yeah, on my Facebook feed. I am scrolling on Facebook, and then there is the whole picture. And then people are saying something about how they feel like she's crying for help. She never wanted to do that. And I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, "No, that's what she does. That's the type of person she is. That's not okay." And no one is saying that. That's not okay.
Well, I think that we feel like she needs to take accountability for her actions. Will she or will she not? Only time will tell. I think, guys, this concludes Sorry Not Sorry. Thank you guys for joining and listening to our episode 2. Follow, like, and share for more. Talk to you soon. Bye. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.